Now, there is need for effective collaboration by all players in Africa's development sector, including government, civil society organizations, the private sector, and the development community, to ensure an all-inclusive approach to the achievement of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. That's a collection of 17 interlinked global goals designed to be a blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. Africa's Social Impact Summit will enable impact investors to design market-led solutions and accelerate impact investment into Africa to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals 2030, with focus on climate solutions, circular economy, agricultural renewables, energy, education, and health. Well, let's get talking around this. And live in the studio, I have the resident and humanitarian coordinator for the United Nations in Nigeria, Mr. Matthias Shimali. Thank you so much for being on the program. He's not here alone. The Chief Executive Officer at Sterling One Foundation, Mrs. Olakweju Ideku, is also here. Great to see you.
Thank you, Tulu.
So ladies first, so let me start with her. but seriously, I was just looking around, and first I'm thinking, why this partnership? Can you tell us more about this? Why this partnership at this time?
Well, we know that the 17th goal of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals is partnerships for the goals. So let's say we're trying to meet that goal.
Wow.
That is the why of this partnership. But we know definitely partnerships are critical for you to have a holistic view when you're trying to solve developmental problems. So this is just one of so many partnerships that have started, and we're hoping to raise the tempo to galvanize more partnerships towards achieving different goals of sustainable development.
And I'm going to ask you, UN plays an important role, of course, in all of this when you talk about the SDGs and all of that. Tell us more about how you've fared and how it's been in Nigeria, what you've seen. I don't know, not only Nigeria, the continent, and what do you think are maybe some quick wins for us? How can we get out of all of these challenges?
Well, first thing to say, I think, is that 8 years ago, leaders from countries around the world signed up to the SDGs. They made promises to their citizens to, by 2030, make significant progress on the development and peace agenda. We are 8 years on and halfway to 2030, and the picture is somewhat bleak. We've had some global trends like the war in Ukraine, and the major crisis in East Africa around climate change and hunger there, that have impacted negatively world food prices. And that has a knock-on effect to Nigeria. We have in Nigeria itself some challenges from our point of view. I don't need to mention the conflict in northeast Nigeria.
Yeah, true.
And from our perspective, a somewhat broken social contract between those in power and citizens. But as you implied with your question, the picture is not all bleak. There are significant initiatives going on. I think many private sector organizations indeed, including the Sterling Bank. I know we have the Sterling One Foundation at the table, but one of the trustees is Sterling Bank. Quite a few banks are playing a key role in mobilizing resources for development, for sustainable impact in development. So there is good work going on. What we need to do now to meet somewhat the agenda by 2030 is scale the positive initiatives that are out there up.
Interesting stuff. And would you say that events like this summit will help scale this up? Reaching the vulnerable is not something that is very easy.
Well, I think convenings like this are critical. And here's why. They are an excellent platform for sensitizing the decision makers on the reality of what is on ground. 1, they are also excellent for advocacy. 3, they are excellent for midwifing these partnerships. An example, this convening started last year at the Transcorp Hilton in Abuja, specifically July 13 and 14. We were looking to have 2,000 attendees and 54 countries. It was clear to not just us and so many other stakeholders across the globe that this convening was timely. We had 3,700 registrants, almost 200%, almost 100% above our target. And these were registrants from 66 countries across the globe. That is really phenomenal. And of course, we had a lot of impactful discussions. Just from that convening, different partnerships have been birthed already. Wow. And I was speaking to just one of the participants. Between then and now, she's been able to execute 3 different partnerships from that convening. I was speaking with I do not want to call names of organizations here because we're live on TV, but these are big international organizations that are now working together across the different SDG goals, from education to youth empowerment to climate action. These are the reasons why we have come together to bring more of these partners on board. 1. 2 is the fact that you have so many people doing excellent work in silos. And they do not even know. And you also find people replicating the work others have done. There is no need for us to do that. Let's come together, identify where we have synergies, identify where we have shared commitments, shared values, scale the existing work on ground, and then increase investment, which will have more impact, which is what we actually desire. And that is what we need now, because we know no matter how much resources we have, resources can never really be enough. So why should 2 different organizations be expending the same resources on the same problem when together they can always do it more? That is why the Africa Social Impact Summit. And let me just use this example of Lagos. In Lagos, every one of us is busy. You're really too busy to even say hello to your neighbor. If you don't have a convening like this to intentionally come together, it's almost impossible to get us all in the room discussing social impact and sustainability issues that are important and critical to us, not just in Nigeria, but globally.
Interesting. So let me go back to Matthias now. 3,000 registrants already from 60, like she said, but mine will be practical solutions here now. What are your expectations with the array of those expected this event? What do you think? What are you pushing out directly?
Let me illustrate what we are hoping for in 2 examples. One is going back to the COVID crisis. Something that has impressed me in Nigeria since coming in December 2021, so more than a year and a half ago, is the entrepreneurial spirit Nigerians have, the many small-scale businesses that are ready to scale up their work for not profit, but impact on vulnerable people. Of course, you need to earn money as a business. And at the same time, there are various forms of capital available. And I think what the Sterling One Foundation is helping us do is bring together small-scale businesses that are willing to change their business model to address problems of the day and capital. During COVID times, some businesses switched to mask production or to gel production.
A lot of money.
They needed investment for that. And so I think there's countless examples where small-scale businesses stepped up to the task, and part of it was made possible through this convening power that Pei was talking about. Now, looking ahead, the president has just declared food insecurity a national emergency. I am told that 60% of what gets produced in Nigeria itself never reaches the market and consumers. Perfect example where we can do more. Banks are ready to invest into agricultural producers. The government needs to provide a conducive framework. More needs to be invested into infrastructure. So it's a perfect example where the situation seems bleak in terms of the millions of people facing insecurity, food insecurity, but the glass is some full. There are lots of people. If we can use the convening power of the private sector of the United Nations to bring those with capital resources, financial resources, and those ready to make a difference, either as an agricultural producer or as government investing into infrastructure, Nigeria can feed itself. I'm convinced.
Interesting. So it looks like everyone's coming together in a room. Decisions will be taken. It's not like we're going to, what should be done, let's sort it out here and all of that. Because I'm looking at those practical solutions that will really drive down the impact? We're talking vulnerable ones. My first discussion, say 8,000 naira distribution and all of that. How far would all of that go? So do you see opportunities here at the end of the day that would make access to equitable, just whatever that we want? Are you sure we'll get to that point?
I am very sure. Interestingly, speaking to practical solutions, we have a deal room. Yes, on the second day of the summit. For the record, the summit is happening August 10 and 11.
Okay.
It's a Thursday and a Friday, and it's happening at the Eco Convention Center at Lagos, of course, Victoria Island, Lagos, from 9 a.m. daily. And people that want to join us, those that have the practical solutions like you've mentioned, and those that have the funds, the different categories of funds, from grants to catalytic capital to equity and debt, they can also join us and register on www.theimpactsummit.org. I'll take that again. www.theimpactsummit.org. You can go there and register and book your seat. The deal room is happening on the second day of the summit on August 11. We have the African Venture Philanthropy Alliance as our deal room partner. We also have UNIDO Investment Technology Promotion Office also working with us on the deal room. Deal room calls are actually out, so those that want to access financing can actually also go on that website and put up their proposal. And yes, there's funding available. As a matter of fact, with our partners at the Sterling One Foundation, we're looking to launch a $20 million fund, a catalytic capital targeted at women in clean tech, clean energy already. So those conversations are already ongoing. So yes, there's funds. There are funds in the house, and there are solutions. So we're hoping that excellent solutions, scalable solutions across critical sectors, health, education, food security, would meet the funds that are available. Because capital is available, but capital will only go to where there's value.
Of course.
And sustainable value. So we're looking at impact investment that will solve these very, very, somebody calls them wicked problems, and also provide value to the investors. So yes, that is happening at the Africa Social Impact Summit 2023.
Do you think that Africa has this prospect? There is something about Africa that everyone seems to be interested in. See, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement area trying to, promote trade around African countries and all of that. So what's the special prospects? What's this thing about Africa that attracts maybe United Nations too?
Yeah. I think it's a couple of things. One is the young population in Africa. I spoke earlier about the entrepreneurial spirit I've seen in Nigeria. It's mostly young people. I think a second point is the role of women. To stay with the agricultural example, we know that a lot of the food in agriculture is produced by women. And it is easy, we think, to unleash that potential through the kinds of processes that have been already described. And again, I am convinced, because it's an Africa, not a Nigeria, an Africa Social Summit, Impact Summit, that deals can be made that bring together women who are ready to unleash their potential to scale up impact, for example, around production or nutrition. Mothers know best what's healthy food for their children. So that attracts many to Africa. I think it's the young population, it's the women, it's the entrepreneurial spirit. It is, despite climate change and all the problems, flooding, droughts, etc., it remains a fertile continent in terms of production. There are several regions I've visited in Nigeria that could be the breadbasket for this country and beyond.
We really need to take more advantage of what we have as a country, right?
Indeed, that's exactly right.
All right, yeah. So back to the conversation of, you started this in 2022, right? And many would like to know, how would you access the outcome of last year's event? That would have, of course, that would be encourage you to do more. So can you tell us highlight some of the positives, the last event?
Okay, so I think I'll just go straight to this event. We had the press conference just yesterday, And we had several partners. And now I think I'm going to call names. So of those, all the partners that started with us last year, and here are the names. We had Coca-Cola, the Coca-Cola company. We had Sterling Bank. We had the Impact Investors Foundation. We had ProShare. We had Tech Cabal. All of them are partners again this year. So you must be doing something right for them to come again. Beyond that, we now have quite a number of other partners. We have the MTN Foundation on board this year. We have the British Council. We have our co-convener, the United Nations in Nigeria, co-convening with us. This year, we had the United Nations Global Compact Network, Nigeria. They were actually partners last year also. They're also still on board this year. Quite a number of names. I don't remember them all offhand. But what I can say is, as we speak, we have about 20 partners. We had the Nigerian Climate Innovation Center last year. They're partners also this year. We had the Nigerian Economic Summit Group as a partner last year. They're also still partners this year. We have Trace as a partner this year. We have USAID Palladium as a partner this year. We have Nigeria INGO, is a network of all international NGOs in Nigeria, the 54 of them. They are also partners this year. Quite a number of other names. I know those that didn't call their names will not be so glad. But then, yes, we have, as we speak, we have over 20. But we have the Association of Development of Education in Africa. They are technical partners. Even going into 2024, they've already started talking about 2024 as we speak. And quite a number of, we have the United Nations Development Program also as a partner this year. So I think I already mentioned the African Venture Philanthropy Alliance. I'm trying to see as many as I can remember. Microsoft is also a partner this year. So we have quite a huge array. And Foreign Policy is an international-based media organization, is a partner this year at the Africa Social Impact.
That's a good one. A lot to look out for. But in its entirety, we talked about challenges, Russia and Ukraine crisis.
I apologize. Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah?
Sterling Bank.
No, Sterling Bank will pay us if we continue that. They will pay. They will get a voucher. So just leave that out of the place. So let's go on now with the challenges that you've mentioned. What entirely now will be the outlook for you after the summit? What are your expectations? What are the positives? What are the impacts? And moving on, as we move on in the year, we know we are challenged in this part of the world, but after this conference, what are your expectations? Oh, the summit, sorry.
Yeah, so allow me to say two things. I mentioned this yesterday at the media briefing.
Okay.
We had Malala in town in the country last week, hosted by our Deputy Secretary General, Amina Mohammed, with a team that I was privileged to be part of. And what struck me about listening to Malala is 10 years ago, she said at the United Nations General Assembly in New York, it takes one child, one teacher, one classroom, one pen, one book to change the world. She said 10 years later, she's realized one individual cannot change the world, but they can start a movement towards change. And what I'm seeing here is the Sterling One Foundation started a movement last year of bringing venture capital and different other forms of capital and financial resources together with people who produce and who implement. So that's one thing. We are in the process. It's a movement, and it's a small step, but every journey starts with a small step. In terms of the United Nations, I remember one session, because you mentioned my colleagues from UNDP last year, was around the idea of placing young people, graduates and others, with businesses for a year to gain work experience, to skill up their experience there so that they can find jobs. And a year on, we have several thousand young people placed with businesses, with the Sterling Bank being one of those that has offered spaces. So we can give you examples like that. A couple of thousand may not sound like much in the context of Nigeria, where 20 million people are facing unemployment. But then we have an initiative called Generation Unlimited, which our UNICEF colleagues are driving. Wow. And there the idea is to connect 20 million young people. And again, I hope that I'm convinced that the second edition of the summit in early August, August 10 and 11, will bring us several steps further along the road of bringing those with resources together with those who need those resources to offer job opportunities, skill up people, produce more food.
I must thank you so much. A parting shot from you.
Thank you so much, Tolu. I'd like to thank our co-conveners, the United Nations,
yeah, of course,
for this convening. And I would like to invite everyone that is interested in being a part of taking the lead when it comes to sustainable development in Nigeria and Africa to join us. To register at www.theimpactsummit.org, and we'll be looking forward to having a transformational time on August 10 and 11 at the ECO Convention Center.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lakweju Ibekwe. I must thank you, CEO, Sterling One Foundation, and also Resident and Humanitarian Coordinator, United Nations in Nigeria, Mr. Matthias Shemale. Thank you so much. I hope to be with you there at the event too. All right.